Hello there, my name's Brandon and I make pictures out of tiny squares. And today I'm trying out some 1-bit isometric pixel art. Each of these on their own are kind of unique styles or approaches to pixel art, so I wanted to try playing around with just kind of the style of working with them together. 1-bit is a fancy way of saying that you're limiting the color palette to only 2 colors, while isometric refers to that 3-dimensional perspective and construction, which for pixel art is most commonly built out using angled lines made from 2 pixel segments. And that's what I'm doing for this one. I haven't done a ton of isometric work, but I feel like I always need to get started by making this sort of square base plate to build everything from. And because you're working with those 3 dimensions, you really got to pay attention to the way that things are joining together and how you build out. Like we can see here, even this early on, I'm already starting to have some things misaligned there, which I eventually catch. But it's not too hard to accidentally create these misalignments or little optical illusion type things if you let your guard down like that. There's definitely a real technique to building isometric art. It's almost like another language on top of that of just making pixel art in general, or whatever your art medium is really. But I found that the easiest thing is just to put in flat shapes first, and then modify those to bring in more angles or interesting architecture after the fact. Right now I'm just shaping out a simple room design, and my idea here is to create a sort of sci-fi treehouse. Like there'll be this small room that's kind of cut away so we can see into it. And then later I'm going to add some trees, but also some technical decorations and stuff to make it look a bit mechanical too. So a bit of backstory about this actually, because from my perspective there's something really tied to my approach here. This week was a bit busy for me, and actually the next few will probably be as well. I just kind of picked up some extra side work at the moment and other general busyness. So I decided to just dedicate one day to this piece, for better or worse, and just see what I could do within that limit. I often get asked how long my work takes me, or how long typical pixel art pieces should take someone. And of course it varies wildly between projects, but a common thing for me is that I'll normally chip away at things over the course of a few days. And I think that's actually good because I like to have time to step away and come back to something with fresh eyes, while it's still in kind of a semi-malleable state. However, when you do that, sometimes it's easy to sink a lot of time into something while only getting diminishing returns on how much you're actually improving it with those additional hours. And that's not always a bad thing, I guess. Like there can be a lot of stuff learned in those final polishing perfectionist hours spent in a piece. But on the flip side, there's a lot of benefit to the efficiency of capping your time, or like maybe not being so precious with it that it's going to slow you down in other areas. I guess probably really it's all a moderation between those two philosophies. And I didn't really mean to steer this into TED Talk territory just now. But this was really just kind of all to say that my approach of this one was just seeing what I could do within this one day of this piece. And I think it ended up being beneficial because I generally ended up following my first instinct. And in this case, I feel like I got, just as much XP out of that one day as I would have if I'd poured another 3 days into this piece. So actually my total drawing time on this one was about 4 hours. It's not like, yeah, I gave myself one day to do this, so I stayed up for 24 hours straight. Technically counts. How efficient. Yeah, it was like 4 hours, and as it happens, there's a lot of time on top of that to account for like time-lapse file handling, emails and other stuff that tends to eat a good part of the workday. I gotta say though, for efficiency, one of the things that I love about the 1-bit style is that it's basically just a one-step process. Like a lot of the work that I do can follow some kind of structured workflow, like building out line work and shading and color. But for 1-bit, you're just working with solid pixels on a background color. So once they're down, that's kind of the final result for that moment in time. And this works really well for getting kind of a natural layering to everything. Like once you have some foundational work there, you can keep building on top of it or adding stuff behind it and slowly add more complexity. And it's kind of as simple as just working with those 2 colors to make those decisions. When it comes to working with 1-bit in an isometric setting, what I've done here is use the white mostly as line work. But then there will be some single pixel gaps between line work of different objects, almost like that white outline is also outlined in a black outline, if that makes sense. This is a stylistic preference, but I find it really helps keep everything clear rather than if all those lines were just intersecting each other. Another great way to strengthen the isometric look is to decide on a shading hierarchy. Like normally in an illustration with more color in it, you might shade each face of an isometric cube in a different color to convey the light source. or just kind of to give clarity to the overall geometry. With 1-bit, you could actually take that idea and shade one side of the cube in the light color, the other side in the dark color, and then the third face maybe in like a checkerboard pattern to kind of approximate an in-between shade. What I decided to do though was keep 2 of the isometric faces in the black shade and 1 in white, because I wanted to kind of save that checkerboard dithering to use in the trees exclusively. I wanted them to have something unique about them against the pixeling of the room, and I felt like kind of highlighting that dithering there was just a great way to do that. And also that pattern kind of provides some texture that sort of represents the leaves on the tree also. After my previous isometric video, one of the construction tips I picked up from some of you commenting was to create perspective circles using either a square or a diamond shape to start with. So here I've built that square framework, and then I'm erasing from the corners to find the circle. And I'm erasing equivalently from corners that are diagonally opposite to each other, and that felt like it was right for the perspective. Overall, this approach just really makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure why I decided to try and freehand those before, but either way, thank you to those of you who gave that tip. As I mentioned, the plan here was to make a sci-fi themed treehouse. So at this point, I'm roughing in a large trunk underneath the room. And from there, it's kind of branching out into pipes and other rigid sort of silhouettes to try and blend together the tree aspect with something mechanical. With the 1-bit style, we obviously get very strong contrast just from those 2 colors alone. But the other thing we can do is mix together different shape sizes and different patterns and stuff as a kind of contrast as well. So for this section, I'm trying to mix various sizes of solid white and different textures like the dithering and just kind of a few other additions like dots and stripes and stuff like that, that hopefully suggest some complexity in this understructure. The final additions here are going to be some character sprites just to bring a bit of life to this place. Because the room here is already kind of busy, I put down this black rectangle first to kind of give me something just to draw the sprite on. And then I can erase from that afterward to leave a dark outline around the sprite work so that the background design doesn't interfere with the readability. The sprite here ends up being 22 pixels tall, and mainly I was just focused on keeping the design really simple and solid so that it was noticeable. And then I've also tried to keep the feet along that main construction angle to fit with the perspective here. And the second sprite here is just a small bunny. Maybe you were expecting a cat or something, but I'm going a different direction here. Not too different really, I guess, but I'm not exactly sure what this is shaping into if it were a real game, you know? I guess some kind of rabbit taming simulator RPG type of thing. But you can let me know in the comments maybe what you think this is. The last thing I'm doing is some quick animation for the bunnies because it'll just add that little extra touch of life to the piece. So the head on this one has an up and a down position. And then the tail I'm trying to cycle back and forth over 3 unique positions to kind of give like a wagging motion. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if bunnies wag their tails like this. So maybe they're not exactly the most accurate. So we'll see. So let's go ahead and take a look at the final piece. Here we go. All right, so there we have it. Just kind of a quick and fun piece. And the 1-bit ISO combo was an interesting approach as well. I definitely recommend that if you're looking for some exercise in the isometric area. And let's go ahead and close out with some CRT time. So thank you for watching, and take care and keep it square.